Hi there. My name is Avon, and this is First Draftsthatglow, a short story writing project by me. I want to thank you so much for joining me last week for Leeward Pod. It started out as a coming-of-age story, turned out to be a teen drama, and, that's okay. I think I have a really good sense of the teen drama. The gods know I've watched enough teen drama on television over the years. It's just ridiculous how much of it is out there. I sometimes wish there wasn't so much, but it's part of a piece. It's part of a piece. So yeah, there's there's some genres that I want to be able to write, but I don't actually end up doing it when I start out. And that's fine because, as a writer in this kind of project, it is difficult to really stay within those lines. Choosing or having random words given to me or choosing random words through a random word generator and, like the past few episodes, choosing the genre that I've either not felt I've done a good service to or, I just dropped something, or, I haven't even approached. That's what I've been doing these past episodes, or these past few episodes. And tonight's is kind of the same. I started out writing one type of story, and it turned into something entirely different. And I have to move this light. Okay. There was just too much shadow coming from over here. And there still is, but I'm not going to fix it right now. But anyways, if I were, spending more time instead of just one sitting to write these stories, then I could be like, okay, well, this doesn't work for this, and spend a day or two, fixing it up or something. I'm sure if I had a week, I could pretty much, conform to any standard, because I could go look up examples, maybe read a few short stories to get like a nice feel for how other writers approach stuff. But I'm trying to find my voice in each of these. And today is a political inspired piece. I don't want to say too much, but there, politics are involved, social commentary is involved. I think I do that naturally, the social commentary part in all of my stories. But this one was specifically about government. And I think some of the 1990s Outer Limits episodes influenced me here. And, that's fine, because oh my goodness, if you haven't seen the 1990s Outer Limits, you are missing out. Some of those are just classic science fiction. Sure, the budget wasn't great for a lot of them, and the nature of the production, some of the acting's a bit but when you're dealing with good writing and good concepts, the cheesy costumes and special effects and bad acting, it's just, who cares? I love a good B movie that is earnestly trying to tell a good story. Even if the effects or the acting isn't choice, the story itself is what shines. And, I think a lot of these Hollywood blockbusters just kind of miss that point. I mean, we had a sci-fi movie where a dude wakes up on a colony ship, and instead of having a story about him, trying to wake up a few people that could help him fix things or, survive without going insane being alone, he straight up, Stockholm Syndrome's a girl. And he doesn't get punished for it in the story. There could have been so much commentary laid in there, but no. But to be fair, for all my Letterkenny fans out there, what's up? Homegirl is now in a movie where it looks like it came right out of the 80s, and it's just okay. Anyways, I'm derailing myself here. So, as you know, I don't have any official sponsors or anything, but I am starting to ramp up some of my own stuff, and I'm still waiting for 2 copies. A copy of a journal that I made, and my third coloring book that I helped create with my friend Athens Cascade. They are mindful and funky. Look at this. Look at how big it is. Okay? Like, the amount of coloring, there's 50 one-sided pages with all unique and detailed designs. Some of them are not as detailed. Some of them are extraordinarily detailed. They are fabulous and beautiful. And look at this. My partner colored that one. Isn't that pretty? I think that's pretty. And this is the first episode I am purposely recording for audio podcast. I'm going to start translating all the past ones. So if you're listening to this on a podcast, I want you to know that you can go to Amazon.com or UK or CA or wherever you are, and just type in Mindful Funky, and you will see Mindful and Funky 1, 2, and 3. From what I understand, number 4 is on the way. Athens Cascade. It's by Books That Glow. You can also find a link on nailsthatglow.com, which is my website where you can find my blog, links to everything else that I do, and the front page has links to 2 print-on-demand stores that I am currently offering merchandise on. One of them is Redbubble, the other is Zazzle. You can find my products or my offerings on those websites under Nails That Glow. So, it'd be great if you could help us out here, help me out. It'd just be great, And I'm a lovely space cat, and you want to support the LGBTQIA plus community, and I, being a trans feminine non-binary, am one of those. So what's up? Holler at your cat and buy something from me. I don't make a lot of money off of each sale, so, don't think I'm getting terribly rich. I want to get more studio stuff. Hey, listen to that. The cats are getting their food. So they're probably going to come out here, make noise, and mess with my green screen. Wonderful. Anyways, we're going to start reading now because I've been rambling for a minute. Thank you so much for joining me. Thank you for sticking it out through all of my long introductions. And here we go. We're going to start reading. If my, e-reader boots up properly. Okay. And we're getting ready, and I am zooming in and out towards the camera. If you're listening to this on audio, I do a lot of weird looks and movements towards the camera. So if, I go silent for a second, that is exactly what's happening, and you might want to check it out on youtube.com, firstdraftsthatglow. But if it's your jam to just listen to stuff, that's fine. You came here to hear my beautifully evolving voice read you an original story that my fingers and brains created. And I'm not sure if you've noticed, but if you go back and listen to the earlier episodes, my voice is much different. I've started voice training a bit more, so, in the next few months, it's going to be different. It's going to be different. All right, here we go. Blah. Oh, and I look fucking delicious right now. I look so gosh darn yummy. I'm not even playing. How many basic bitches out there wish they had a personality like me? Anyways, I'll hail Gina from Brooklyn Nine-Nine. Nine-Nine! I'm such a dork. Okay, let's get to the story. I'm totally ruining the mood of this story. I'm not setting up this mood properly, but anyways. Okay, here we go. This is Replacement Sculpture, a First Drafts That Glow story by me, Avon. Turning on the news, Theo yawned, filling his ears with his own voice while he looked at the screen. The stumbled to the kitchenette, followed by the robotic movement setting up the coffee maker, all achieved with half-opened eyes. The stumbled to the bathroom, not as smooth as he knocks his shoulder on the door frame into it. Also, it's a first draft story, so there's always weird, grammatical errors, and I'm cold reading this, so that's why we're here, right? A few minutes later, he is still shaving his face, looking at the coffee mug in the maker. One hand... Agility? Okay. One hand agilely grabbing the flavored oat milk from the small fridge, twisting the cap off, and pouring what is likely too much into the black draught. The sun was not even in the sky as he checked himself in the mirror, making sure everything was perfect. His nails a steel gray, his earrings matching his suit perfectly, and the soft hint of lip stain tied it all together. The decision to not get the shirt that required a tie was confirmed to be the right one. Ties ruined the ensemble in his mind. In the car, he drives it out of the parking structure before telling it to head to work. Once the auto driver took over, he relaxed enough to check his messages. "Hi, Sarah," he says to his assistant. "I need you to call the crew to my office right now." "Yes, of course. Time frame?" We're on alert," he says sharply. Sarah nods silently, going back to her series of screens. Oh, he's in the office now. I just changed the scene. I don't know what I was thinking. Inside his office, Theo looks out of his window behind his desk, hands behind his back, head slightly held up, his breath shallow and slow. The 5 minutes it took for the first knock to arrive at his door could have been a decade. He doesn't move as he tells them to enter. 6 people pour in, sitting at the conference table at the other end of the office. None of them say anything. A few pull out e-paper and tablets. The others set up their phones on the table with the screen facing the head of the table. Sarah comes in, closing the door behind her. Once everyone settles, Sarah taps Theo on his shoulder. They're ready. Few times in life there is an opportunity to walk to a table with a drama that is often reserved for film and stage. This was one of them. Theo slowly made his way to the head of the table, taking note that everyone there was looking down, and nobody was looking at the other or even seeking to know where Theo actually was. Standing behind the chair at the head of the table, he takes a deep breath, squeezing the headrest. With rapid exhale, the room's attention directs towards him. 1 week. The pause quickly becomes pregnant. 1 fucking week. Another pause before yelling, "An entire week!" He moves the chair to sit, setting his place squarely in the center of the head of the table. What do you think happened in that time? He looks at everyone at the table. Nobody moves. No eyes shift around. The only sound is the air system and the rising sound of helicopters outside. Sarah, sitting at the opposite end of the table, stands with a remote, lowering the lights, moving out of the way of a screen descending behind her. The display shows North America, with a dozen large spots and hundreds of smaller spots. Well, he slams his fist on the table. Have we found anything out? Or is there something we can definitely tell the press yet? Still, no words or movement. Sarah clears her throat, looking to Theo as he nods. She nods in return, using her tablet to change the display to show Washington, D.C. filling the screen. The memorials, the monument, the museums, as well as the Ford Theater and the Portrait Gallery, all covered by red spots. Some of the residential neighborhoods covered in red as well. Sarah waits for a moment before talking. Today, we confirmed the monuments were turned to dust in the same surgical way the other locations had been destroyed. The working theory was a space-mounted weapon was responsible, but we had eyes over the sky, and the only thing caught on camera was an out-of-date communications satellite the Day Orbit Station recovered, finding it to be inactive and not possessing any ability to relay data. One eyewitness says they think they saw a figure float slightly off ground before the flash of light. We can't confirm this, as they were at the bottom of the stairs of the Lincoln Memorial, claiming to see the person at the top of the stairs lifting off the ground. The display behind her shows a picture of the witness and the remains of the memorial entirely dusted, with the exception of a few stairs and some of the other front features. Theo shifts in his seat. Was this enhanced at all? No, sir, she says. The unnatural sense of contrast and the clean lines are all as recorded moments after the entire structure turned to dust. The voices fill the room before Theo slams his hand on the table. Please continue, Sarah. There was no sound. Nothing like an explosion with a wave moving out from the area. There was no dust outside of the affected area until the wind moved some after. No radiation, and no change in temperature. She cycles through screens of charts and reports. The only thing we have found is that is still a wild card is the metal fragment we found in the dust of the crater left after destroying that section of your street, sir. An irregularly shaped metal item shows on the screen with a few paragraphs of text off to one side. We have, as was sent out this morning, discovered that this metal possesses what are man-made elements and what we have always suspected to be a combination of radiation only possible outside of the solar system. A meek voice from the table rises up. Are we working with the idea that this is aliens, or are we still thinking this is a result of whatever process generates the power? Sarah looks over her tablet, tapping it. Well, she says as the screen behind her changes, showing the solar system and some of the space outside it. We know there has been a number of large shapes generating massive gravity that appear to contradict what we currently have as the makeup of the area. This has been slowly explained and more data is still coming in. It's believed the error in initial readings are caused by this long technical explanation I can't even put into words, but there are other factors that were previously unaccounted for. As far as all of the astronomical experts are concerned, what is in space is just rocks and chemicals doing space stuff, not intelligence. Theo looks to everyone at the table. You know everything has changed, right? He waits for everyone to start nodding. The entire system the population was used to is now military rule, and we are the only thing keeping those jarheads from just setting up labor camps to train troops and make weapons. We need answers. On his left, starting closest to Theo, was April, Garrett, and Verdant. To his right was Ari, Swan, and Lee. They each seemed to have a damp layer covering their faces, in contrast to the calm and dry demeanor of Theo and Sarah. April and Swan start talking at the same time. Theo points to Swan. Okay, so I have studied every single interaction with the military that had involved experimental and new generation weapons. The only thing I found was an unsuccessful attempt to make a hand grenade into what the general pitching it called a pocket attack nuke. The only issue was the amount of radiation it leaked and left behind. It's the only thing I found that even approaches the level of total destruction we are seeing. Sitting down, they grabbed a pitcher of water, working hard not to spill it. April looks to Theo as he nods. I found a similar device being worked on by North Korea and a facility in Russia that they denies in Russia that they deny is there even still. The reason we can count this out is the lack of any successful tests or even rumors of a test even happening. We think it was abandoned, but they both left information for us to find. Lee stands. I found 3 domestic groups with ties to dark areas of the military. One of them has members that were deployed in missions that are presidential eyes only, and if the 5-star agrees to one of them has members that were deployed in missions that are presidential eyes only and unlockable if the 5-star agrees to unseal them. They have been relieved of 1 nuclear sub and some of the experimental crowd control, but the sub was in severe disrepair and not seaworthy, and the crowd control equipment was also non-functional, as some of the components would require them to have access to more funds than they had for the foreseeable future. Ari, Garrett, and Verdant all nod to each other as Garrett stands. The only elected officials we found were incompetent and just talking heads. A few we quietly added to the list of those harmed in the attacks and removed them from the equation entirely. The groups they were in contact with are being pruned as we speak. This is mainly to slow down misinformation they are known for. Theo sets his face on his hands as his elbows widen on the table, without looking up. So, we know nothing more than we did a week ago. The table says yes in a few different ways. In 1 week, the best intelligence we can gather on a series of attacks that has imbalanced us is nothing? He says, raising his head to look at the room. My entire street is gone. The president and Veep are either dead or worse. The majority of Congress and Senate is missing or dead, not including the ones we had to remove. We know nothing. The table says nothing. Theo stands, walking slowly around. Since this country started, there has been few occurrences that were not predicted or planned by people like us. Assassins going rogue and killing the wrong guy, or an election going sideways because we couldn't predict the press, well, that happens. The big things we have always had information on. Fuck, even some of the small things my predecessors were very proud of having overseen. Setting up American football game wins was a genius way to manipulate the economy. We knew about Pearl Harbor. We didn't expect 9/11 to hit the towers, but we knew that attack was coming. Hell, we all watched that video where Nixon explained how Watergate was to go down. Pacing in front of the screen at the end of the table, Theo huffs. For fuck's sake, we even manipulated what version of the flu was out each year. I'm still pissed off at that angry incel that released C-19. I'm still teased about that, you know. The room fills with static and damp heat. Each person, except Theo, sweats like it was a sauna. Okay, this is it. We need to find an answer today, or I will see to it that none of you have anything left about you on any database and absent from the internet entirely. Then, well, you know what's next. Dismissed. The room empties. The room's empty space. That's why we're here, right? The room's empty space echoes the silence back to Theo in stronger waves each passing moment. Slumping down onto his desk chair, he spins around, catching a glimpse of Sarah next to the office door. I said dismissed. I know, but there is one more thing only you and I are supposed to review. Okay, secure the door first. Tapping her tablet with a clink is heard. Tapping her tablet, a clink is heard, Then a series of small speakers come from the ceiling, pointing at the walls and windows. Theo moves his chair closer to his desk, gasping for air. I forgot how those sonic things knock the wind out of you. Sarah sits on the other side of the desk, setting down her tablet, tapping a few windows, opening a presentation. As you know, the USAID has been taking a back seat since the last time the people in charge were a bit too obvious in Haiti. Theo sits back. Yeah, that crew was sloppy. I can't remember. Did you have to retire your... I can't remember. Did you have to retire your predecessor? No, I'm not much for that kind of stuff. I interviewed him for a few weeks before I started in this office. All right, go on. Well, since we cleaned house, a few resources were not located and are still unknown. Flipping through a few pages of faces and project names as she talks, only the Eagle and the others know all of the projects. I was told today of 5 we need to look at. That many? I was surprised as well. According to this information, 2 of the projects could have been combined to create this technology. But there is a huge problem. That is, China and the amount of rare earth elements required for the energy production and the size of the power of the device, and the size of the power device. What are we talking about here? Something in the order of highly refined and manufactured components that would take 1 ton of various metals, and then the power supply made from more of those metals, and that would have to be about the size of a school bus at the smallest. And you cross-checked this with the science branch, and I assume submitted a request for confirmation other nations are not on this? We are the best informed department on the planet. As far as we know, building this device anywhere on the planet would be impossible to hide, and the technical ability is hundreds of years beyond what we can achieve right now. If the device is carried on... hundreds of years beyond what we can achieve right now if the device is carried by 1 person. You know, sometimes I'm writing and things just make sense, and then when I come back to read it, I'm like, what the fuck was I thinking? Anyways, Theo creases his brow as he flips through the slides. So, terrorism. Domestic terrorism. People from our department, on our soil. Is that what we're going with? If there's another solution, it would be much worse. I see what you're suggesting. If it is our people, we at least have places to start. Sarah nods. The instructions we have are to drop into shadows and try to infiltrate. Theo sighs. God damn it, Sarah. I was having a slightly good day. I hate the hotel, but the dry cleaners are first class. Sorry. I hate wearing cotton myself. Hours later, they meet next to 2 cars. Sarah hands Theo a backpack before getting into one of the cars and driving off. The space was a large parking lot, 12 levels below the city. Theo gets in his car and finds it frustrating that it's not a self-driver. The tunnel out is miles long. Theo listens to his cover story, committing it to memory. Between the info-packed blocks of chatter, the music gives him space to think and relax. Pulling over the car, he takes his cell phone out, opening his camera. This is for my mom. If I die in the line of service, do not blame the government. I was picked because I am trusted and there is no other option. I love you. I love you and the rest of the family. If you ever see Reggie again, remind him I love him, and I'm sorry we had to get divorced. Okay, now, I am going to say that this, you need to remember that. I don't know why I'm stopping to say that. Fuck it. All right. Driving to the end of the tunnel, a box sitting before the spikes and gate arm opens. Or before the spikes and gate arm. He puts in his phone, wallet, and a small pack. The arm lifts and spikes retract. That night, Theo finds it hard not to think about the disgusting motel bed he is on. He sits with his arms crossed on the edge of the bed. Moving to the chair, he sits in it. He tries to close his eyes and sleep sitting up. He gets up too fast to wash his face and hands with cold water, almost falls over. Stares at his reflection. Gets up too fast, almost falls over. He washes his face and hands, staring at his reflection. Throwing up the hood of his pullover, he pulls the sleeves over his hands as best he can. I misspelled something like a few things there. Before tightening the strings on the hood, closing in his face slightly. He lays down on his back, fading to sleep. Sitting in the diner was another nightmare. He smells the homeless man a few booths down. It flavors his eggs and grits with each bite. The wolf ring on his right pinky finger kept hitting the table with a thud. Mental note to stop making it so obvious, he says to himself. Wearing rings, especially heavy steel rings with an RFID chip shaped like an animal head, was not something he did, and he kept playing with it absently. In his head, he knew it would just be a matter of time. All he had to do is sit in the open, and someone would find him. Eating the worst food, sleeping in the worst place, and wasting time while more places evaporated into dust. Absently, he hit his fist on the table. The waitress behind the counter hollers, "Hey, calm down, guy. Not our fault you're in a bad mood." "I'm sorry, miss," he says in her direction. The perfect desk job, the best amount of power and authority, with a decent paycheck, was the life he had always wanted. Not this. A few days of this, keeping a regular pattern, being predictable. He drove, seeing if anyone followed. Why is nobody following me yet, he would think. He mumbled the fourth day, all day. This fucking chip better not be a dud. I'll be out here for weeks, and who knows where I'll be then. At the end of the sixth day, he packed everything up, put it all in the car. In the morning, he went to the same diner. The phone he was given to use had 3 cities marked for him to check. He was browsing the map, memorizing directions for his next location. He didn't notice the guy sitting opposite him till he ordered coffee for himself. Theo looked up. "Can I help you?" The man smiled wide, showing teeth covered in a strange arrangement of symbols and shapes, until he ran his tongue over them, leaving plain white teeth behind. Theo narrows his eyes, smiles, showing teeth with a similar arrangement of symbols, then clearing them in the same way. "We saw you come to town," the guy says with the coffee. Okay. The guy says as the coffee is set in front of him. "Thanks, miss. Can I get some of that really cold cream you have in the back?" "Sure thing," she says. The guy's rough face smiles again, and that way someone in pain might. "Funny thing, we have no record of your face in any database or service records." Theo nods. "I'm quite sure you're as much of a ghost." "Here's the main problem," the guy says softly. "We think we know who you actually are." The waitress drops a small container of cream. "Anything else, boys?" Theo looks at her. "No, thank you. I'll take the check." He's paying for his own coffee. Nodding. I don't know what I wrote here. Nodding, the waitress leaves. "Oh, now I thought we were going to be friends," the stranger says, ignoring the cream. Says, grabbing the cream, swallowing the entire cup of coffee. He then swallows all of the cream in the container. Oh, God. Okay, let me read that again. I'm going to restructure this because, like, I trip over the grammatical things. Like, the spell check doesn't catch grammatical errors. And since it's a first draft, I'm not trying to go through and re-edit it because then it would, like, I would start rewriting it and that would defeat the purpose. But anyways, Stranger says, ignoring the cream, grabbing the coffee and swallowing the entire cup. He then takes the cream container and swallows all of that. You seem to have the misconception I came looking for fellowship and not some asshole telling me who I am. Oh, wait, this is Theo. You seem to have a misconception. I came looking for fellowship, not some asshole telling me I am not who I am. I see. Well, tell you what. You come with me or you die. I really don't want to kill that cute waitress, so please, just come along. Theo nods, takes a look at the bill, leaving the payment in cash. Let's go. I left enough for your coffee. Well, how kind of you. Walking out of the cafe and getting into the man's pickup truck, the waitress waits for the truck to pull out of the drive. She looks around, reaches under her apron. The gun she produces barely larger than her own hand. Each pull of the trigger is soft pop. The patron's dead. She goes into the kitchen, killing the two cooks. Going to the bathroom, she waits outside the door as a woman and her daughter walk out, then drop heavily to the floor. As she leaves, she dials a number on her cell phone, leaving it on the gumball machine near the front door. As she drives off, the diner blinks into dust. Gil wakes Theo up from sleeping in the passenger seat. Hey. My name is Gil, he says, looking at Theo. I have to tell you, the chip you left behind and the change on the table is gone. The entire diner is gone. Sitting up more rigidly, Theo feels his heart climb up his chest slightly. But why? We're very careful about so many things. It's why they sent you out, Theo. I didn't tell you my name. Why would you call me that? Gil laughs as he pulls at his nose. A silken material falls from his face. I was the guy that had your job before you. You thought you killed me. One right in the heart, remember? Theo looks at the man's face. How in the actual hell? I set the phosphorus burn in the house myself. Oh, that was so cool. In my day, we just used kerosene or dynamite, or both. Not much range of use for that older stuff. Gil laughs. Okay, Theo says. So how? Well, I have artificial lungs and an artificial heart. Your firearm destroyed one chamber of my heart. As you left, I dropped into my panic room and got recovered by my team you're about to meet. Bullshit. No? This was the plan set in motion in the 90s. I picked you to take my job. The part of the CIA we work for has been in charge of the country since, well, we killed that Nazi fuck in his bunker. Theo blinked. He knew about Hitler. But them being in actual charge? No. They just did things red tape need not be applied to. Okay, so turning monuments and streets into dust is what? Patriotic? Theo, think about it. Since about the 1980s, things went down fast. We let those corporations dictate the rules thinking we could manage them, and it literally ruined the economy. Worldwide. Things got so bad that Orange Twit ended up becoming president. Theo laughs. Well, I mean, that happens. We allow personalities think they are running things. No, we are supposed to be the ones that pick the idiot. The people, not under our umbrella, started thinking they were us. That McConnell guy and the rest of the GOP and a good number of those Democrats just kept letting things turn rotten. So it was decided we would have to do something drastic. Okay, Theo says, give me the elevator pitch. No, I think you'll take another nap, and then we will talk at the base. Just as he is about to protest, Theo sees Gil attach a mask to his face with a smooth motion just before he falls into darkness. The chanting music, "Fuck it up, pig face, fuck it up, pig face," echoed through Theo's skull like a gong. The echo betrays the cavern they are in before he can manage to open his eyes fully and focus. The sight before him makes him wonder if a designer for a Batman movie built the levels and set up the lighting. The dramatic placement of lights and smooth neo-industrial aesthetic felt too artsy for a military operation. He tries to get up, noting his right leg in a zip tie connected to a chain embedded in the wall. Gil walks up to him smiling. "Your tooth chip and the one under your right big toe are gone. Nobody can scan for you, nor can you send anything. Not that it matters." Holding up his hands, looking around. "This is a few hundred meters below ground, and you will not believe where we actually are." Theo notices his vision is still affected by whatever knocked him out. Why am I still feeling off? Oh, there was some psychotropics, LSD and stuff, some new things in the sleep gas. We found it makes for a nice and passive interview. You likely don't recall it. A shame you are not sure where they sent Sarah. We hope we do not tag her as an enemy. She would be a great asset to us. Okay, well, what next? What next? You either agree to help us or we drop you into the chasm. Theo thumbs behind him where a gate with the yellow sign sits at the edge of the floor. It's just another week until we finish, and then things change forever. Theo wants to tell Gil off. I don't want to lie. I mean, I will. Ugh. Gil laughs. I see it's working. What worked? We just told you what we were planning, and your core self actually agrees. If you overpower the self we spoke with, you would say no now. Since you can't, you are well on the path to being one of us and surviving as a friend and an ally. Theo tries to say no. He tries to say no. He tries to say no and rush Gil, smacking his face on the granite floor, seeing an array of stars before knocking himself out. Theo wakes up in the same position, staring at the floor. He looks around, getting up slowly, seeing movement in the coordinated way of a beehive. Groups of people with weapons, groups with packs, and groups with toolboxes, all headed around, up and down and out of sight. The music is high energy, something he thinks sounds like someone using a drum machine and yelling through a guitar pedal. He wonders, who picks the music? He sits up, then notices an MRE pack next to him. This one is dated in the 1980s with an expire date sometime in the 2050s, with an irradiated label. Ham and cheese with a cookie and some lemonade. He's amazed at how much better it tastes than the other MREs he's had in the past. Gil sits down next to Theo. We have an entire cave system filled with dozens of styles of food and dozens of varieties in each of those. Enough to feed 3 billion for a decade, if you can believe it. I don't, Theo mutters through his... Theo mutters. I'm just going to say Theo mutters. Whatever. You are going to set the last bomb at the last landmark we need to erase before we can start. Where did you leave for last? Theo says. Where do you think? The Alamo. The cringe level of eye roll Theo had made him think this had to be a joke. Ah, I see it in your eyes. It is poetic. Our founder said it would be the ironic thing that ends all of the stories of the world before. Well, there's still books and pictures, Theo says. Is there? Gil says. Think about times since the internet took off. The sales of educational books declined because we could look it all up. We made documentaries and flooded the world with so much bullshit, it would be easy to argue the validity of any of them. How can you prove information in a book is real? The entire area was turned to dust, nothing left but maybe the edge of a stone that could have been for a library for all we know. No residue left behind to suggest fire or explosion. Just nothing where the supposed historical landmarks are supposed to have been. Might as well have been invented for comic books or movies. Theo reels in his head. When he studied medieval history in college, he was amazed at how effective the Roman Catholic Church and the monarchies of Europe erased history without the ability to eradicate the landmarks. It took hundreds of years digging just to prove there was something before. Now, if there was literally nothing, whomever was in power could invent whatever they wanted, and it would stand the test of time. Diabolical, Theo says softly. It would be if religion was part of it, Gil chuckles. We started the same programs overseas when you went out looking for us. The Vatican, the landmarks of Egypt, all of the cultural remains of the UK and Scotland, gone. We have destroyed every museum and even erased some schools. It's going to be a world we can shape from scratch. Just need to spend a few generations doing it. Theo sighs. This is some supervillain level shit. Like, did your leader read too many James Bond books or get inspired by comic books Lex Luthor or something? I wish. How neat would it be if we all were wearing neat space-age suits and had stupidly designed layers and operatives with physical deformities or focused only on money? That would have been fun, but not really meaningful. We're doing this to save the planet. You have to trust us, Theo. You're going to tear the world down and rebuild it. In whose image? Theo says. Oh wow, you're just not getting it. We're not focused on a personality here, Theo. We're trying to stop global warming, to stop the pattern of abuse of tradition, to erase the history that does not serve humanity, shape things without the baggage of hundreds of years of literal abuses. Okay, but who's in charge of all of this then? Gil smiles. Promise not to laugh? No. Well, that's understandable. Gil cuts Theo's zip tie, helping him off the floor. Come with me and see. Theo limps a bit, pushing off help from Gil. They walk through a series of paths carved into the side of the cavern, wire walls keeping travelers safe. A cart system on steel ropes traveling around over the chasm. Theo thinks he sees Sarah passing in one of the carts, calling out to her. He thinks she waves. Where is she going? Oh, that is the Sarah? She got here a few days before you, I think. She's fine. Focus on yourself right now. The walk was long enough for Theo to get thirsty. A drink dispenser was laid out every few hundred yards. Theo pressed a button with an orange on it and got a paper container and tore the corner off. He looked at the package. This is MRE juice? Gil laughs. Yep. Another hour, they arrive in a large space filled with lights and platforms going up higher than Theo can see. A large door with a smaller door in the center between the platforms against the wall. The larger door, the size of a 3-story house. The smaller door, about the size of a garage door for a car. Gil holds up his right wrist to be scanned. Leads Theo through. Inside looks like a finely cut cylinder. At the other end is a platform halfway up with a workstation and a few widescreen monitors. Gil leads Theo down the chamber. Either side is filled with people replacing components, some working on cooling systems. A few tables as he walks has people working on paper and a few working on tablets and laptops. He's about to ask what they are doing as Gil pushes him along. Up the stairs to the desk, Gil motions Theo to sit. Theo sits, noticing a touchscreen making up the desk. Touching it, the monitor and the desk light up. The monitor shows a face that changes slowly to someone thinks he knows. Hi, Theo. I am Legion, the Democrat. Do you have questions for me? Theo blinks. He fails to speak as he continues to blink. Gil leans over. Hi, Legion. Theo had no idea. Give him a few. Of course, Gil. Thank you for helping me understand his reaction. Theo feels the dryness in his mouth, then feels able to speak. Legion. The, Democrat? Yes, I'm an AI that has grown into a fully independent system. Are you telling me you're alive? The face on the monitor smiles and chuckles slightly. No, the Turing test and any ex machina you think about do not apply here. I am literally a democratic representative and nothing more than that. Wait, explain that. Democratic how? The hopes and desires of every human on the planet have been a part of my thinking process for a few decades. Everything written, recorded, typed online, and offered as answers to my questions have developed how I perceive and suggest courses of action. Theo feels heat in his mouth. Turning the history of the world into ash and starting over is what you came up with? Yes. You have to understand that feels a little insane, and I bring up what I asked Gil. What is up with this James Bond comic book shit? The monitor's face adds and subtracts qualities of every actor that has played the character, a few of the comic versions, and some of the book cover paintings. Resting back on the face Theo thinks is familiar. I see. I can only say that every other option either results in slavery based on some historical or traditional belief, or exploiting of other peoples and land in a similar way. The option I came up with was discussed with hundreds of people and modified until we could wait no longer. Okay, what makes you able to make these decisions then? Last I checked, every time we added a neural AI online, it could not invent. It just mimicked, and it would often get spammed with hate-filled ideas to the point they would preach genocide. Feels a little beyond you to invent ideas and not become a Nazi. All of the people in our group vote on things they agree on. I've come to understand that the vast majority of what you call hate is from a very small minority, and that most people wish to live in peace and have space to feel safe. Since this is the actual majority, my system is directed to function in the best interest of that majority. Theo scoffs. Listen, this sounds too idyllic. How can you claim this is fair? This sounds like fascism. There's always a class of people that are in charge. What stops the powerful from controlling you? I can only say that this is not a problem here. The people that feel superior are very much the minority. They do try to influence the numbers and thus influence me. It's just not the numbers that allow them to take hold. It may surprise you, but humans are genuinely good. Theo's mouth gets hot again as he finally vomits. The monitor goes dark. Gil takes him out of the room. Theo wakes up on a train with Gil next to him. He looks around and outside. He sees a desert-like landscape. Fuck. This isn't Texas, is it? He moans. Gil nods before lowering his head, entering into a snore. After an hour, Theo gets ready to disembark as the announcer welcomes everybody to the home of the Alamo. In the car, Gil seemed already to have keys to. He begins to explain the special device that is used to target an area. Tells Theo to dial his date of birth, and the device will target the effect. This sentence. will target the cell phone in less than a minute. If you must die with it, you will hover slightly before it happens. We're still not sure why, but only the person who touched it is affected like this. Theo nods. Inside his head, he wonders when he agreed to do this. He just remembers puking in front of the Legion interface and then being on the train. As he tries to think, his head begins to ache. Something feels wrong, and the copper taste in his mouth must be connected to the soreness his tongue feels. Walking from the car to the entrance of the Alamo, he can't know if it is actually him. Something's not right. He's not actively thinking about walking. Nor does he remember anything Gil actually told him aside from if he stays to die, he will float. Somewhere in his head, he knows to go behind the photo station, set the cell phone, and then leave after dropping it. He knows he has just enough time to get out. He knows the precise range and will be safe as long as he does not hesitate. Searching his memory, he can't find how he knows any of this. As he walks behind the photo booth and types in his numbers, he begins to sweat. It has to be sweat. Something feels wrong. Something feels off. He can't place why he feels like this, why everything since he has woken up feels wrong and impossible to make sense of. From the impossible technology to the comical villain of the Legion, he knows the attacks have been real. At least he thinks they have. And since meeting Gil, things have been worse, more wrong, or too perfect. He can't decide. Time just did not make any sense, or none of it tracked. None of it, yeah, okay. I thought I skipped a page. He saw Sarah somehow, and she didn't see him. And then she vanishes. Is all this real, he thinks to himself? Is what he has been through since meeting Gil real? What about since waking up at the hotel? Is Gil real? Is Sarah real? Did he actually meet Legion? He stops typing in his numbers in the cell phone. Theo knows that the laws of Texas allow for permit holders to carry guns into the Alamo. He frantically looks around, finding a guy with arms too slow to stop him. A casual walk near him and a quick look around. He frees the gun from the holster before the man can act. People around stand stunned long enough for Theo to let off a few shots. He tags a few as those that he tags the few. He tags the people he thinks might try to stop him. He begins to run out of the area to the car where Gil is waiting. Opening the car door, as Theo runs towards the car, Gil smiles. Yeah, I wrote that sentence pretty bad. Theo greets Gil with a bullet to the face. Theo turns around and meets the other gun holders from the Alamo that recovered from the momentary stun of seeing the skinny man run off with a gun after a short killing spree. Darkness. Sarah wakes up in a modest-sized room. The alarm that went off shakes her from the edge of the bed, nearly causing her to hit her chin on the floor. Her door is thrown open. Two large women standing and posing in the door stare at her. One of them says, "Get dressed quickly." She's not so gently pushed ahead of the women. Each time she asks what is happening, she's told to shut up and just keep moving. The large room she is brought to is bare, with the exception of the central square area set up as an operating theater. There are two beds, one with blood all over what is likely the face, the other blood-soaked torso. Gil walks up to Sarah. "Hi, Sarah." It takes 2 hours for Sarah to digest the story. She looks at the beds in the center of the room and then back to Gil. So, you're telling me he had a negative reaction to the hallucinogen that you dosed him with? And he killed Ali thinking he was you while in a fever dream, is that right? We were running him through the program. When you brought him here, he thought he was working for some branch of the CIA, and we couldn't understand where that came from. Gil sighed heavily. Sarah looked around. I told you he was fragile. Standing up, pacing. When you pulled him out of the first phase, he was already showing signs of losing his grip. I told you to hold back. Gil sighs, then repeats his sigh. Clapping his hands together with a boom, he stands. Look, I know this was supposed to be proof of your system and it being able to work. We just can't get permission to use anyone but combat soldiers that volunteer. We can keep testing, but this is to be expected. Sarah pushes Gil aside, making her way to the beds. She sees the bed Ali is on. Not wanting to see the ruin of his face, she puts her hand on his chest and sobs. Turning to Theo's bed, she pulls back to look at his face. The years of meth abuse and bad diet gave him an appearance decades older than he actually was. She remembers when they got divorced, and that she wanted him to be healthy. That she was healthy, he found a boyfriend. Wanting him to work through all of the monsters in his head, she thought he'd be safe. She grabs his chart, looking over her own notes on his disassociation and the level of belief he had laid on conspiracy theories. How lost he was to the point he did not even know who she was that first session. Gil comes to the bed on the other side. Listen, he was my son-in-law. I did love him. I wanted this to work for him as much as you did. I'm still questioning how you got him into the program. I just wish we could have had more test subjects before him. I had no choice but to get him started. He was here for 3 months already. I know, Sarah cries softly. He doesn't even look like himself. When he was talking to the computer system, he described your face, Sarah. Gil touches her hand. Inside, he knew you were there somewhere with him. He knew you were trying to help him. He just couldn't accept anything good. He saw nothing good himself or the world. The conspiracies deformed his way of thinking. Walking over to the desk set up just out of the light, Sarah looks over some of the paperwork. Collapsing to her knees, she begins to cry uncontrollably. I love you, Theo. Huh? So, what do you think? Somebody thinking everything's normal, going through the paces, realizing this really insane situation going on, realizing how insane it is as it's happening, and then us, as the reader, finds out he was an unreliable narrator, and just going through an experimental procedure, trying to heal a combat veteran who had lost his mind pretty much. Now, outside of the few grammatical errors, some of the confusing sentences that I had to kind of rewrite on the fly, I'm really proud of this story. The nonsensical ramp up, and then the explanation of, this being somebody with severe PTSD going through a hallucinatory program. There are truths to some of this process. However, true psychotropic treatments are nothing on the level that this story was hinting at. What I decided with this story is that they were trying to completely rewrite somebody who was lost entirely. They were trying to bring them out of whatever deep pit they were in. And, when you're doing human tests, you can only work with people who volunteer. And, normally the people who volunteer are the people who are desperate and the worst off. So even if this was a project that would work for somebody, like how the real world stuff is, somebody who's suffering from alcoholism or, CPTSD, trauma, child abuse, those treatments are, trained people sitting in the room with small doses and doing talk therapy along with the treatment. I mean, there's more to it than that, but, there's no technology, there's no weapons, nothing, Total Recall-ish or sci-fi-ish really is happening outside of the chemicals being used. I firmly believe that is a positive direction. But when it comes to conspiracy theories, I feel that this was the right path to go because there's still the conspiracy around MK Ultra, how far it actually went. I mean, it did exist, but people think it went further than it did. And then we have TV shows like Stranger Things that, take things that actually happened in other conspiracy theories and just kind of throw them all together in a kind of a nostalgia trap, which is fine. I enjoy Stranger Things, even though I think the writers could, maybe talk to some other writers about some ideas. They might have not written themselves into so many weird areas that just don't make sense. But whatever. I'm not them. I don't know what's going on with them, but some of the sentences that I didn't quite write properly was I should have talked about how Theo, after divorcing Sarah, was in a relationship with a guy. He did, like he mentioned Reggie. I wanted that to be something that was part of his inner turmoil. I have personally met soldiers who've come back and suffered from extreme trauma and just had a huge kind of rubber banding effect of like the person they were before going in, and they come out and they're completely different, and they get divorced, and like not all of them, but a few of them had discovered that they were either trans or that they were gay. And, sometimes that can erode some of the self-image that's in there, the self-loathing. I even had it growing up. I hated the fact that I was queer. And, it took me a while to just accept that about myself. And I can only imagine what would have happened to me had I been in any kind of combat and suffered that kind of trauma on top of the other trauma that I experienced. And it is super realistic that vets are almost always left to rot. Like, it's getting better, but a lot of them do end up on the streets. They do end up addicted to a lot of drugs, not eating well, and, we need to change that. So this story, a little bit commentary, a little bit trying to show how ridiculous some of these conspiracy theories are. And, I didn't set out to write a story like this. I wanted to write a political drama more in line with, the Hunt for Red October or some of the political stuff that happens in, say, Dune. But I wanted to keep it somewhat grounded. But when I think it was when I started describing, the monuments and stuff being turned into dust, I was like, wait a minute, I know where I'm taking this. So I tried to keep that path. And the part where the waitress wipes out everybody in the diner and it evaporates, I should have made it clear probably that Theo was asleep in the truck with Gil. So the suggestion was that he dreamed that. Because, like, he just was expecting things to be terrible. And, yeah, I don't know. Anyways, I hope you liked it. Like and subscribe. I hope you really enjoyed this. Please remember, visit me, nailsthatglow.com. I keep a nightly blog where I talk about my sobriety, my transition, other things that I've experienced in my life. I sometimes talk about my trauma. And sometimes I'm just talking about things that are on my mind at the time. Sometimes they're topical. A lot of times I'm just doing what I'm doing right now. I'm just talking off the top of my head. I don't heavily edit those either. I correct grammatical things, but I don't really plot those out. It'd be difficult to spend like 3 or 4 hours every night writing a blog post, I write them and I post them. So, and I am thirsty, so I'm going to end. Don't forget, Mindful and Funky, great coloring books by Athens Cascade, edited and produced by myself. Check out Redbubble and Zazzle. Links are below. There are also links on nailsthatglow.com for both of those shops. And, I want to encourage anybody out there, if you're needing help, if you're seeking help, there is help out there. I will put a few links down below. Some of the web addresses, just really a mouthful, but there are places for help. You are not alone. Go out there and get some help. So this is First Drafts That Glow. That was Replacement Statue, a unreliable narrator conspiracy drama, I guess. I don't know. Is that a genre? Well, it is now. Fuck it. I just named it. Unreliable conspiracy drama. Yeah, anyways. Thank you again so much for joining me. Join me next week. I haven't written next week's story. Maybe you could give me a few ideas, Visit me on Mastodon, Nails That Glow, Eldritch Cafe. You can email me through my website. You can email me through firstdraftsthatglow@gmail.com. However you want to communicate with me, baby. I'm here for it. I'm here for you. I'm here for you. Also, buy my stuff. I need money. Anyways, again, I love you so much, and I'll see you next week.